Hello everyone, welcome once again to Monday Night Roundup on Bloodbowl Live. Here to go through all of the last 2 weeks worth of fixtures in the ADBBL. We are going through all of the last 16 games. We had 8 last 16 games happening over the last couple of weeks. We'll also be looking at the quarterfinals coming up and various other things that we've got to go over from the last few weeks. So I'm here once again, as always, joined by my Roundup regulars. We've got Tom. Tom, good afternoon. What's in your mug this evening even?
Oh, just tea today. Just tea.
Just
yeah.
tea. And we've got Scott as well. Scott, good afternoon. What's in your mug?
Evening, Chris. Evening, sports fans. Regular tea, yeah,
Well,
as intended.
I feel bad because I've got Ghost Ship in mine, but with a spare can just in case next to me, just in case we run out. Right, well, let's dive straight in then. No, before we dive straight in, we're not going to dive straight in because last week there were a bunch of stuff that I kept forgetting. So I think let's do some of that stuff now before we get into the last 16 games. Scott, I'll pass over to you. Merch was one that I forgot last week completely. What's going on merch-wise?
Well, the fact that it was 2 weeks ago, Chris, shows how exciting it was, and the fact that you've totally blanked
I
off your experience in New York.
I don't
think
know. I don't know if anyone else was up till about 4 watching the Super Bowl. I was. I'm down on my energy. I'll get there. We'll get through.
Cool, thank you, Chris. Everybody who is in chat, who is watching, doesn't seem to be many at the moment. We are very much a growing community. So yes, some people might see us as A&D BBL. We might be seen as the poor man's bonehead podcast, even Ben, if you're watching. But we have something that everybody wants. We're not talking about the usual court injunction or restraining orders. We have needs, and one of those needs we're proud to present is merch. And tonight we're going to present to you the A&D BBL mug. Now this is not just a mug, this is an A&D BBL live mug. This mug has been designed for the BB coach, Bloodbowl, who deserves it all. So for all your liquids, paints, brush storage, drinks, when you put brushes in drinks as well, this is the mug, double-sided as well. You did not know you need in your life. So this is something we're starting, and it's going for a great cause as well. So when you use this mug, can't guarantee it will see your magnetism, your charisma, and your attraction explode. It might do, we don't know. But how do you get one of these in your life? Two ways, not one. First way, appear on the Monday Night Roundup. Yeah, join the ranks of the previous coaches who have been on. So Jane, Phil, Justin, Scott as well. Come along, listen to the banal witterings on a Monday night, throw in whatever you want to do as well, and you get yourself a mug. Alternatively, go to the Just Giving page. There'll be a link somewhere, I'm sure Chris will put one in chat. Go to the Just Giving page and make a donation to Suffolk Mind. Really super charity we're all supporting this year, and it is very much a first come, first served basis. So they are hot. They are, well, not literally, so they have been legitimately obtained. But if you want one, there is limited opportunity to get one. Before we go further, just have to do the usual disclaimer about this. First of all, do not wash this mug. Do not get this mug wet. Do not expose this mug to sunlight. This mug must be kept at ambient room temperature. Do not feed this mug after midnight. Do not eat this mug. JD, looking at you. Do not hold this mug by the handle. Missed that bit. Do not attempt to pick up the mug, okay? Do not try to repair the mug, and your mug is at risk if you fail to keep up payments accordingly. For all terms and conditions, see the A&D website for details. Do we have an A&D website? We will, and they will be on there. Your call is important to us, and calls may be recorded for safety and training purposes. God bless. Yeah. So if you want a mug, come on Monday night. Secondly, give some money to charity. We all have a problem with plastic crap. The mug, it helps a lot of people in a lot of ways.
It also guarantees you to roll sixes.
I feel like we should.
There you go. According to Tom, 6 is guaranteed. Nuffle blesses this mug.
I feel like we should start every roundup with just like Scott, like Scott's corner with like that. I mean, that was phenomenal. I was hooked. I was absolutely roped in.
Up down half-time commercial.
Yeah. Thank you very much, Scott. On the Just Giving side and the charity side, as we all know, we've been doing what we can to raise money for Suffolk Mind over this last season. The offer from League Commissioner Scott to do his elf team, which we've comfortably raised the money to get him to make that as embarrassing for himself as possible by now. The mugs as well, all of these extra things that we've had. We've now raised. I'm pretty sure last time I checked it, we were at about 230. We're now at £402 for Suffolk Mind over the course of the season. So a huge thank you to everyone who has done something, offered something, and donated anything that they have done. It's been, it's been great. We put a £500 target there, which was, to be honest, it was just the default number that they wanted. I was happy for us to raise whatever we can, and to be up to 402, I think, is really great. So a huge thank you to everyone for that. Right, let's talk about some Blood Bowl then. Let's have a look at some games, and we're going to go in the order that the draw was made rather than the order they were played in. So it's going to be a bit jumping around. And we're going to start with the Scale Marys versus the Kraken Skull Cannoneers. 2-0 victory for the Lizards against Goblins. One of two Lizards versus Goblins games that we have. The next one will be after this. And a 2-0 win for the Lizards, which I got some information on sort of what happened in this game, how this game kind of unfolded. I think I've said it hundreds of times that a 2-0 scoreline is often looks better for the team that won. When actually I think it is tighter, and I think there were points in this game where it could have been 1-0, 1-1. The Goblins put up a real strong fight here to try and get a result, and very nearly took the lead in this game as well. It was always going to be a bit of an uphill for the Stunties to come up against the Lizard Men, especially Dave's Lizard Men, which, I mean, we know is it has got some phenomenal skills on some of these players. I mean, sort of as far as a team that is there to do what damage it can do to a Goblin team, lots of block, lots of guards in there as well, and I'm pretty sure as well there is some Mighty Blow in there, and then on the Skinks for good measure we've got Sprint, Sure Feet, Jump Up and Sidestep. There's so much going on in that team. And Tom, I think a bit of credit, I think, to Robert to start with. He picked a slightly different team this year. He's gone bashy most years. He picked Goblins. He came in and had a bit of fun. And actually, he may be out in the last 16, but he's done well to sort of get to this point, and he's just come up against a very strong opponent, I think.
Yeah, it looks like it started off quite positively, like on turn 2, already injuring a skink, plus also taking quite a fun lineup with the additions of Bobber, Drimmelswap and Hackflem. So he got a bit of speed there as well, and a bit of danger. Then unfortunately just seemed to dissipate, unfortunately, fouling left, right and centre and getting sent off. But as you say, it was clearly a misconception that it was a walkover for the Scale Marys, considering that first half was pointless. It was 0-0 at half time, and then the actual 2 tries come very late at the end of the game.
Yeah, I believe as well in the first half. I think the Scale Marys did try and stall somewhat in the first half, and I think Hackflem managed to get in there and break up the party and stop them from doing so. Scott, Hackflem, as far as a inducement goes, I've never had the opportunity to take him. A powerful gutter runner alternative 20 Skaven team. Add something good to this kind of Goblin lineup.
I think if you're a pure Skaven, there's really no incentive these days to take Hackflem in your team. But a team like Roberts, he's going to give you, all of that extra skill that he comes with. He's got the 2 heads. He's got the extra arm as well. He's got your 2+ in terms of your dodge as well. So if you want someone, as you said, to get stuck in To give you something else for the opposition coach to think about as well. Movement ace, he's 2 badge as well. Very, very good player to have. I agree with what Tom said. First of all, I don't agree with Tom that there were 2 tries. Come on, Tom, you've been watching too much sport again.
6 nations.
But otherwise, I thought Robert did really, really well. As you said, it felt with Hack Flem as well, all the fouling. It just felt, that he almost, wouldn't quite say punched himself out, but he really just didn't get the roles in terms of the fouls, in terms of trying to cause a lot of disruption. So it felt that Dave did well, weathered the storm. Good effort from Robert as well. So yeah, it's an interesting choice because I don't think we've seen Hackflem taken at all this season. Obviously, people have got, this is the season of the squirrel. I think this is the first time we've seen Hackflem taken.
I can't recall Hackflem featuring much, and he is a superstar. He is a fantastic addition to any team. I think the ref was absolutely on top of things in this game as well, because we can see turn 7 foul sent off, turn 9 foul sent off. So the ref was kind of keeping a close eye here and making sure that Blood Bowl was played as fairly as Goblins can play it. Dave makes his appearance in the last 8. It's the second time in a row that he's got through to the last 8 in the league. Scale Mary's got through last season and were beaten by, I think, Iceborne Raiders, who went on to win it. Do we think, looking at their team, we've got 2 Lizard teams in, and we'll talk about mine, which is the next one in the next game. But he's very much got a lineup which is very, very strong. There's a lot of guard in there as well. Crocscore's got guard. 2 Sauruses have guard. 1, 2, 3 Sauruses have block. It's a very beefy, very punchy team compared to the other Lizard team, which is a lot more agile. Do we think it is punchy enough to kind of overcome any of the dwarves and things that are coming up?
It's as good as I think Dave's. Well, given if you look at where he's got his skills, most of them are from aren't chosen. They're actually from random selections. So kudos from getting a bit of the luck of the dice on that. And these are sort of natural skills you would go head-to-head against bigger, punchier teams. Are you suggesting that he's going to roll past the Ducks and then go on to feature one of the bashier teams there, Chris? Are you not feeling confident? Is that something you want to share with the crowd?
I don't want to go ahead and jinx myself. I've played Dave twice this season, and I've won 1 and I've lost 1. I think it could absolutely go either way. We'll go on to my game next, and in the usual fashion, I'll let you guys take the lead here. But before I do, Coach of the Flumps has provided me with a statement that for the Flumps going forwards. The Flumps have had a topsy-turvy season, and questions are asked on some of their tactics used. The team has thought long and hard about staying together, retiring, or something else. A rebranding of sorts, like a certain mythical bird. They shall rise from the ashes. Flumps for next season, their final farewell season, shall now be Flamingos. Fighting, losing, and maybe initializing nonchalant goblin offensive shenanigans. So it sounds like these plucky goblins will be back next season, and I'm very glad to see that they're coming back. I'm also sorry, Scott. I'm glad that I got through. I'll hand over to you guys now. I won't to ask any questions you wish of the game.
Well, first of all, I'm really intrigued. Is Scott in chat? Yeah, he is. Are the flamingos going to be painted pink? Hope so. It needs to happen. I actually watched this. It was a really interesting match because Scott was doing some great shenanigans. For example, he's using his ball and chain to push some of his linesmen up the pitch and sitting through into your cages, Chris. So I noticed that. It felt like the Ducks got off to a really good start. I know you were sitting back quite deep. You were very conscious looking at that of his of Fungus and Nobler as well. Plus, of course, he's got one loon kicking in there as well. One thing I noticed as well, in terms of you had your Crocs. Now, your Crocs seem to be a bit hit, a bit miss. What was your take as a coach? Were you pleased with your Crocs, or were you a bit disappointed? Because you have history, don't you, with Crocs not performing?
Yeah, I'm used to rolling ones on Bonehead with Crocs, and yeah, she did roll a lot of Boneheads. She was not the clever girl she's been other times this season. But I think I think Scott might even agree with me here that the game was almost decided on turn one when he re-rolled Fungus from, I think it was a double. I think it was a both down, skull both down, re-rolled into a skull both down. And as soon as Fungus falls over, he's off the pitch. And I wasn't. So immediately that just kind of only gave me, if I could get rid of the other one and maybe do something about the chainsaw, that's a bit easier. And it's it's terrifying bundling all of your players around a ball and chain, because if you don't knock it down, they're just going to have an absolute party ploughing through your team. Luckily it worked, and I think that probably was enough to kind of put the goblins on the back foot, because they, with those positions in play, they're so difficult to kind of figure out where is safe. I think at one point on the stream, the ball and chain is somewhere, and I'm marking out a 5x5, like 10x10 square where is safe that the ball and chain cannot get me, just to position players sort of around the outside, so that I was absolutely terrified of those secret weapons. And I think, to be honest, I think I was lucky that they weren't on the pitch for as long as they could have been. Otherwise, I think it would have been a very different game.
I have to say, I'm very impressed and pleased that he stuck to the Flumps stuck to their kind of promise of only having pure stunty team as well. So the entire league, they had no big guys and no non-stunty star players, which I think was very impressive.
Yeah. I was very happy because I thought it just means there's only two that I can't easily punch. But even then, I was sort of. I mean, you can tell looking at the page, there was only one casualty all game. That came near the very end of the game as well. It was very few. Yeah, turn 16 was the only casualty that actually happened. Otherwise, it was very quiet. Just the odd foul here and there and the touchdowns. It was a very kind of respectful game between goblins and lizards with that regard. So Scott's played such an interesting way with them, and I think goblins to me terrify me, and his goblins terrified me. So I think you could tell that I was sat there scared. I was like, I've got to take every single roll as seriously as I can because I'm frightened. So it was good fun. It was good fun to kind of play against and see the kind of chaos. But yeah, again, I think I was quite fortunate.
Excellent. Scott does point out in chat, he mentioned obviously Fungus falling over on the double skulls, and as he said, he didn't make any dodge re-rolls. He says his dice were horrid that game.
They were. The dice were definitely on my side. He failed most of his dodges or dodge re-rolls, and I think I used a dodge re-roll once, and I certainly never failed one. And in the first half, I think I went in at half time with at least one re-roll spare, maybe two. That the dice really didn't go his way, which was unfortunate. So, I now need to prepare for a lizard rematch, which is a bit scary. We'll go over the lizard rematch prospects a bit later when we look through those fixtures. Lizards v Lizards, not the only same team matchup we've got. We've got another one coming later on. But for now, we will go on to the next game, which was our last one that was played. It was a repeat, the third time these two have played each other this season. Buffalo Biggins versus the Biting Bats. Tom, very familiar with both of these coaches. And there was kind of a familiar but not familiar story here in that, as they have done on a few occasions this season, unfortunately not against you, Andy's dice let him down a little bit in this particular game. Did you think this, again, I think 2-0 probably makes it look kinder. I think it probably was a bit closer, but I know that the dice were certainly on Harrison's side here.
And also, it didn't help that by the looks of the bomber killed his vampire blitzer straight out on turn 1 as well. So it's already a difficult start when you're already down a blitzer on a vampire team. I suppose it just means there's a few more thralls around for the others to munch on. So yeah, and then again straight away on turn 2 he gets an injury on a thrall as well. So I've played both of them, and to be honest, Harrison has got a good command on these orcs. He knows how to play them, he positions them very well, and he's sure and steady all the way down the pitch. So well done to him.
Yeah, 2-star players coming in. There was quite a big difference here. Pouring rain as well, so various things coming in just to make things a bit probably more challenging for Andy than they would be making them for Harrison. Scott, Harrison is having. He said, I was in the shop when he finished this game. He said to me himself that he wasn't really sure what was happening this season because it was going so much better than last season. I know that I've got to say as little as possible on the subject, but he's looking like he's more comfortable with this team certainly than he was with his elves last year.
He's played well. We talked about Harrison being, since the first round of matches in his group, he's played really, really, really well. Obviously, he's played vampires who have either been very hot or very cold. But he also had Justin and his elves in there, so he's done phenomenally well to do that. He's got some good skills. Notice he's given block to another big un, so again, it's going to begin with that. He'd give him a bit more strength and a bit more survivability. What's going to be really interesting when we come on to it is how's he going to approach the match, especially in the quarterfinal against more of an agile team. And we know Simon has got one of the most terrifying agile players in our league as well. So it's going to be another challenge for Harrison. It's going to be really interesting how he comes about this now and how he's going to, possibly take it forward. I'm not going to say anything more because I know we're going to come on to the quarterfinal shortly.
He's got an interesting kind of selection of skills on there, and I know that some of us are sort of fans of the random skill, especially in your first season with a team, and I wonder whether it kind of causes your opponent a problem if you either random or choose skills and you've got quite that kind of spread across the team. He's got sort of block on one, guard mighty blow another, armbar tackle on another, juggernaut armbar on another, dodge tackle, frenzy, strip ball. If you give all of your players block, which I know is everyone would love to immediately be able to give everybody block on the pitch, I guess your opponent kind of knows what they're facing across the board. When you sort of shuffle the skills up a bit like this, whether it's deliberately or through random skills, you do it's kind of like for your opponent, you're like, well, okay, so that one I've got to pay attention to this, and that one I've got to pay attention to this, and that one I've got. It does kind of shuffle things up a bit. I feel like it, in my mind, it gives you an extra thing to think about, which can maybe be a distraction that will help your opponent. What do you guys think?
Yeah, I think it's also the other way around as well. So Harrison's got to remember what skills on what and what it does. And you're quite right. You know that all the common ones, block, dodge, guard, but all the unique ones, how useful is armbar, for example. Remembering you got Juggernaut on that blitzer rather than just going in straight ahead and blitzing and forgetting you got Juggernaut kind of scenario. So I think it's interesting because, like you say, it keeps the opposition on their toes because they're like, oh, hang about, just need to go have a quick check. If I go round this one, oh, actually, that one's got tackle. Okay, can't quickly, easily dodge out of that. But then equally, like I say, Harrison's got to remember to be on the ball himself.
It's a quick shout out to Andy as well, just on last season. He bottom of his group last season, but very, very tight. I think he could have one result, one dice roll going his way last season. I think he could have got out of that group. Coming back this season with the Vampire team, he goes through second place. Unfortunate that he then plays someone in his group again, but I shout out to him for having sort of it's a good turnaround from bottom of your group to coming through and getting last 16. And it's such a tight league. Last 16 is such an achievement, so well done to him. Sorry, Scott, I cut you off.
No, story of my life, Chris. That's fine. The one thing I was going to say is Tom mentioned armbar there. Harrison has rolled it twice as a random. Most of the time, armbar, you get that skill and you sort of roll your eyes and think, oh, really, Nuffle hates me and he's going to be spitting in my tea today. But he's against a team that's got a lot more dodge in it now, so maybe he'll be able to maximise armbar. He's got an armbar on tackle with one, so if he can get a few of his big guys up and personal and close to a lot of Simon's dodgy, stunty, sidestepping, annoying little players, then you never know. It could make things a lot interesting as well.
Yeah, the armbar tackle combination could be a player to watch against Simon because that will punish one of those dodges, and it could be a really key thing. Speaking of Simon, we'll go to his game, our highest scoring game in the last 16, against Dead Star Belgrave. A 3-2 victory for Simon in a game that I think was very close. I think David was very aware at how quick Simon can score, and therefore tried as much as he could to kind of stall on his turn if he needed to, and play in the way that would minimize how much time Simon had to come back. And looking at sort of the way that the game went, I mean, a turn 2 touchdown to start off with, and by turn 8 it looks like, after scoring on turn 6, a 2-turn touchdown again to score on turn 8, score on 12, equalizer on turn 12, and then 4 turns to turn 16 with a completion and a touchdown to win the game at the very end. Simon has found, it seems he's found his team, because he himself will acknowledge his poor performances in previous seasons, and this Underworld team really seems to suit him. Scott, you played him in the group stage a couple of times. He's got, we've said he's got that amazing gutter runner there, but he's also kind of seems to kind of have a rhythm with this team as well.
He does. He's got his strike force in terms of Snooch Skitter, everybody's most hated gutter runner, because he's, I know he's a bit busted on his armor down to 7, but hey, when you've got movement 9 and you've got sprint and you've got sure feet, it's like, hello, 12 squares. And I mean, that's why he scores so many touchdowns. He's got a really good thrower as well, and he really, I find it against Simon, a great match. When you're playing the Underworld and the Snotlings, they are just so frustrating. But I think it just shows we had a very, we talked in the group about in Nixon about having some really strong sides, and we've seen what Tom's done with his vampires, and we've seen as well what Simon's done for his second season now with these guys. So he's really playing well. And then looking at the match, he's just shown what you can do when you've got at least one gutter runner, as you said, Chris. You can strike and score in two touchdowns. That was really good. I felt a bit for him because I know he's missing his Rat Ogre's injured, missing next game. I think there was a bit of an issue in terms of maybe loading, because when I was watching this live, I thought it had the Rat Ogre down as a completion first of all, and I thought, hey, if that is an actual real completion, then yeah, for a Rat Ogre to do that, but looks like it's been rectified now anyway. So I think Simon's been playing really, really well. Just want to shout him out as well because he has given a super big donation to Suck Mine. Simon, your mug is going to be in store on Thursday for you to collect. So I hope you enjoy that, and a big thank you for your donation. I actually, honestly, playing Simon as well and seeing the group that David had come through, you know, against the Iceborne Raiders, against the Hot Spews, I thought that my money was on the Shambling Undead to start with. So again, you know, eat a bit of humble pie with Simon as well. He played it really, really well.
It's interesting, isn't it, that Dave Rue is a seasoned player, absolutely knows what he's doing. He's put up a fight here. He's come into this game with the stronger team, but with a much slower team, and Simon has everything he needs to run around Dave's team here. Tom, all three people who got out of the group of death are out in the first round. And two of those are redrafts. Dave isn't a redraft, but the other two are redrafts. Do you think that they, in it being so tight, in having that competition cluster in that group, do you think they almost, in playing such tight games between each other, have kind of almost hindered themselves? Because whether they've played a bit conservative, whether they haven't gone for it because they know who they're against, have they kind of slowed down their development by playing so many tight games compared to the rest of it? Is that something that could be of influence here?
Yeah, I'd agree. Yeah, definitely. I think, like you say, there's a lot of new teams that are coming through, which is great to see. It would get very boring very quickly if the same redrafted teams were always getting through. So that's quite nice. And equally, like you say, they were all clumped together in the group of death, which means that they've all been kind of knocking each other out, allowing others to go through, which is great. It's great for the league, you know, to have that, because I think people would get disheartened very quickly if the same people were just winning all the time. It's interesting to see because with Simon's team, he's got a huge kind of number of players in that team, and just doing a quick number on the back of a cigarette packet kind of thing, he's basically giving Harrison the same amount of team value points as Harrison's team is now. So he's going to give him 205,000 points in inducement money for the next game. So that's going to be a really interesting one to see.
Yeah, and missing the Rat Ogre, I think is going to be a big thing. I wonder whether he's looking at star players and looking at who he can bring in to kind of fill that strength void, or whether it's tricky. You know, you're thinking almost that, you know, there's options there with the tackle that's going to be in his way. Do you go for a troll as a mercenary so you can chuck some snotlings down the pitch, maybe avoid having to dodge around? Like, I think he's got a lot of options. Underworld team has so many options just inherently there. Be interesting to see which way he decides to go for that last 16 game. Second time reaching the knockout stage, second time reaching the quarterfinals, 2 seasons in a row. Well done to him. Commiserations to Dave. I think he's met an opponent who's on a roll, and also sort of the pace there. But it sounds like Dave played his heart out, and yeah, I'm hoping and sure we'll see Dave next season as well. Whether we'll see the Undead, we'll wait to see. We will go into the next half of the draw then. That's one half of the draw. And the second half of the draw, which me as someone who's in the top half will say that the second half of the draw looks much scarier. I'm very happy from that perspective. And we start off with what I think probably what delivered everything that I really wanted it to. A very, very tight game between two two-time champions, Riotous Rounds versus the Iceborne Raiders. 2-1 tells you how close it was. It was 2-1 after extra time. And 2-1 after extra time where in turns 23 and 24, John could have equalised to take it to take it to a roll off as well. It was Tom. It was the tight game we wanted it to be. It delivered many casualties. It was what we all wanted.
Oh, absolutely. This was the box office game or that people wanting to tune in and watch. It was a really interesting match to see. It's the fact that John took Deep Root, Strong Branch, that seemed to be wandering around very quickly for a tree.
Had a very good first half and not a great second
Yeah.
half, I think, from memory.
And then you've also got Nanny just doing what she does best and just absolutely slaughtering Valkyries left, right, and centre. So it was a really entertaining game by two really well played coaches.
Yeah, it looks like in this one, Justin died, Tom, you died, I died, many people dropping dead all over the place, or being out all over the place. Deep Root was an interesting choice. I was in the shop when John arrived for this game. He told me and Scott that he was bringing Deep Root, and I think both of our reactions were just sort of, ooh, like it was sort of not a route I expected him to go down. But it in the first half, Scott, it did seem to pay off. Like the tree was getting in the way, it was succeeding on all its roles, it was moving around, it wasn't going down at all. It was doing what it needed to in the first half, and then it kind of fell off a little bit.
Absolutely. First of all, it was kudos to both coaches. Shout out to Rich, shout out to John. It was the box office of the round, as Tom rightly called out. As soon as Nanny comes on, turn two, boom, you've lost alignment because you're dead. But then in terms of the tree, he really got in. So Deep Root was really giving John, I felt, the ability to start to go toe to toe with Rich. And then as the second half went on, Deep Root really wasn't making the rolls that he was making in the first half. And that's, almost just Rich, the grind from Rich in terms of, call it a power game, to use the sporting cliche, but it really felt it started to wear the ice ball down. And I think any other coach might have lost it by more than 2-1 and much earlier than going into overtime as well. Because as you rightly say, Chris, John could have another day won this. It could have gone to an absolute dice roll in terms of deciding the winner on this. It was very fine margins, and it was a very good spectacle as well. It's going to be really interesting. I don't know if Rich has made any upgrades, or has he put any skills on anybody, or if he's waiting to see. But again, as we've always said, Rich is looking ominous in terms of his team.
I think after this game, Rich either randomed a guard on a Beastman lineman. So it's sort of Nuffle is with him on the kind of skills that it looks like he might want. It was great watching sort of John in extra time. John, I believe John had kind of the feeling of, if he received the ball, he thought there was maybe something he could do. He didn't receive the ball in extra time. Riders Rams got their touchdown that they needed, and John then, looking down the barrel of a defeat, did some amazing plays, which was so close to coming off. Got a pickup, got a 6-up pass with a lineman, I think it was, successful as far as it could go. And I think it failed the catch at the other end. Nanny then comes through to block to try and get rid of the threat and rolls double skulls with no rerolls. Nanny is then down on the floor. And then John has either got a block followed by a 4-up, 3-up rush, I think roughly, or it was a block followed by a 3-up rush, or it was a 4-up, 3-up rush. He goes for the block, his player goes down, and the game's kind of done there. But it was still so tight up until those last few turns, doing some kind of absolute shenanigan plays to try and get the ball up. And there was just a moment where he succeeded on the 6-up pass, and anyone round the table was just like, oh, what if he gets this? What if this happens? It was a lovely moment, and two incredibly skilled teams, two incredibly skilled coaches, two of our champions. It was a great game, and well done to Rich for coming out on top of that. Rich, the only champion left in the draw, and do we think, based on coach experience, team experience, skills, that kind of thing, I don't want to jinx him, but is Rich looking? Do we think Rich is favourite at this point on paper?
He's coming up against a dwarf in the next match, regardless of the outcome of that match.
Yeah, if he gets through vampires, it's dwarfs nonetheless.
Honestly, I think it'll be another interesting challenge for Rich. I know we're going to come on to talk about the Bloodthirsters against the Hot Spews as well, but I think, I'm going to be back in the vampires on this. I think Tom is really, really playing them well as well.
Well, we'll go on to that game next then. We'll go on to the Castlevania Bloodthirsters versus the Tetanus Hot Spews. I spoke to Hot Spews coach Scott about this game when I got back, and I asked kind of what happened, mainly because, not that I didn't think this was a surefire thing either way. I didn't think one person was going to walk away with this, but with the bloodlust, with the disturbing presence, with the foul appearance that is on this Nurgle team, there were so many dice rolls that had to go Tom's way to even do basic stuff. To do a pass, you've got to not roll a 1 twice before you can even consider where you're ending up. To do a block, sometimes you've got to not roll a 1 twice before you can. There's so much to think of. It's almost the worst opponent and the worst built team to face as far as all the admin you've got to do. And I'm told that Tom did get through rerolls quite quickly, did get through them, and did make his way through. And Scott said to me he didn't think he played badly, but Tom just played better, I think. And such a tight result here, maybe that seems right. Scott, you've faced Tom twice this season.
I've faced Tom twice this season, and I actually went in and I caught, I think it was sort of turn 5 through to 9, just passing by as you do, you go by Indy. And it was a very, very tense match. It was very well played by both coaches, first of all, kudos again to Acredes. And at one point, I think Tom, when he was feeling a bit like everyone in the group who had played him, i.e. you're filling up your KO box very, very quickly. So both coaches were burning their rerolls. And even towards the end of turn 7 into turn 8, Scott was going for it in terms of trying to get that touchdown. And there were opportunities looking at, pickups, handoff, and then passing to one of his team as well to get that pesticle down and into the end zone. But Tom sort of hanging there. He really was, despite everything. Regen was helping both coaches. So both coaches had a bit of that. And it was really, really good to see. And it just shows again, I spoke to Scott as well, and he said, hat off to Tom. Tom played a really, really great match. So Tom, if you're listening, we need you on the Monday night, mate. You need to come on and you need to tell your fans, what it's like running a vampire team where you don't use up all your re-rolls after turn 1 and where you don't fail all your bloodlust.
It's a great result for Tom. He was unlucky last season that he lost to Elliot, lost to the Numpties in a roll-off, which is such a horrible way to go out of a competition. The season before that, he met Scott with one of Scott's different teams in the last 8, I think it was, and lost to him there. So he's kind of been unlucky with strong opponents and with unfortunate kind of endings for the last 2 seasons. in a way, he's still unlucky because he's had a great result here, and now he's got to face Riotous Rams as his next opponent, and then probably, possibly face, well, definitely face Dwarfs again after that. But Tom, as a Vampire coach, there was how much there is to think about, even more to think about in this game. Kind of keeping your composure and keeping going is such a great thing to have achieved, and he's done well to get through this game.
Absolutely, and he's also managed to put some quite good, kind of much needed skills onto those vampires as well. So again, with your both throwers who've got block, one's got block and dodge. You got thick skull on the Vargeist, and that runner. Oh, one of the runners has got sidestep, dodge, and block now. So she's looking very, very kind of fast and on the ball, so to speak. And plus his blitzer has now got mighty blow. So there's a number of really strong skills on those players. So I wouldn't count them out against the Riotous Rams.
And lots of skills there. 4 rerolls in that team. We've got a lot of high value teams as well left in this draw. I think we could end up seeing very few inducements, but very skilled teams kind of progressing through. I know that in a way that Scott's hot views here. I know that he won't be happy about going out because his record of making the semi-finals in every season is now done. But I also know this is the first time that he has ever redrafted, and part of him was looking for a reason to know that he shouldn't, and not making the semi-finals for the first time may give him that reason to never redraft again. But I know he's been enjoying playing this team.
I'm just going to jump in there. Breaking news from chat. So Tom's in chat as well, and he says, "Beat the coach I was most scared of. Let's give the 2-time champ a run for his money, shall we?" Come on, Tom. We want a bit more trash talk than that. Really, if you're going to slate Rich, do it properly. Come on, tell him, Rich, you can't. Can you change a light bulb in a fridge? What's going on with that? He said it was his first time beating Scott. He's played him in the playoffs in 5 and 6 seasons and lost every time. So he said, "I will try and come on the roundup next week." Open invite for you, Tom. Come on, get yourself on. Or if you want to save it, and then if you come on as champion, who knows? I don't want that to be the kiss of death, but
what are you doing? I was deliberately not. We'll move on. No. Right, okay, next game. We'll go on to Numpties versus OTFC. James and Elliot played each other last season 3 times, twice in the group stage, once in the knockouts. Elliot getting through in the knockout stage. Elliot, I don't think probably neither of these coaches overly wanted to play each other, but are very used to each other by this point. I know they get on very well, I can't, with all the goodwill in the world to James, who is a very skilled coach. He's been playing these ogres quite a lot. He took them to Manchester just last weekend for a tournament. I've seen him taking them to other tournaments as well. He knows what he's doing with them. I feel like I maybe thought this was going to be the result from this game. Tom, did this sound right? It sounded right to me. Did this sound right to you?
Yeah, although I agree. I've seen James play this ogre team in a tournament with exactly the same setup with the White Dwarf, and it's been devastating because that White Dwarf giving little special skills to other players can really keep the opposition on their feet. Yeah, but knowing Elliot and his dwarfs, they're like a brick wall just going through. The beautiful thing was that we saw was a dead dwarf, and a runner at that.
It's sort of, for me, it's a bit of a double-edged sword, that, because while it's wonderful to see a runner go down, he's replaced it immediately. He's immediately got a new one, but that one did have some skills on it, so we're immediately seeing the team weakened a bit. The thing that worries me is that the team is still terrifying, but the team value is slightly lower. and I now Elliot, Scott, Elliot is terrifying on a normal day. Elliot with inducements against you with this team would just it's nightmare fuel. So he's still looking like a team to beat, isn't he?
You asked the question a few moments ago, Chris. Do we think, for example, Rich is the bookie's favourite, to use a phrase? I think Elliot is at the moment. Yeah, okay, he's got that dwarf runner coming on. It's not going to take too long for him, the way he's scoring as well at the moment, to at least get one or two skills on that extra dwarf runner as well. And again, if he has got an opportunity, all of a sudden, if he's playing someone, like a 1.3 to 1.4 million in terms of team value, makes things very interesting indeed. But at the moment, Elliot's just playing a great game of Blood Bowl. As you say, he's really, really taken this team to another level. So, looking forward to seeing, him. But again, let's not, write off the other dwarf team that we're going to come on to as well. But again, going back to this match against James, it always felt that it was going to be a tough game for James, and Elliot just proved that, you can kill one dwarf, but it's the other 11 who are going to just beat you down.
Yeah, he is looking incredibly strong. It's going to be interesting to see which of the many strong teams comes out of this half of the draw, and I think that both dwarven teams, the Vampires, the Rams, could all be in that final, and it's going to come down to a key dice roll somewhere along the way in every game. I think it's going to be really interesting. As Flumps points out in the chat, all three stunty teams lost 2-0 in their knockout games. It does look like OTFC will claim that Stunty Cup at the end of the season with their performances. So well done to them. Flumps, don't worry, you can still keep your trophy from last season. We will give them a new one this season. We're not going to take yours away to hand over to them. But it's been just on the Stunty teams that we've had. It has been really entertaining to watch them go through. I don't know if any of us had all three stunty teams progressing. I don't think any of us had all three stunty teams progressing. And it is great for the variety that all three got through to the last 16, sort of one way or another. And they've all offered something a bit different as well. It's been really good to see.
Absolutely, and I think that's what's actually really nice about all of the teams, that there's no standard build, so to speak, in any of them. They've all had their own uniqueness, and each of the coaches have brought their own special play to the game. So it's well done all.
Yeah, it's no two teams, no two sort of the same team are built the same. Everyone is a bit different, which is really good, and does add to the variety. We will move on. Oh, we're on the complete wrong page. We'll find it. Where are we? There we are. Here we go. On to the last game, which was the World's Edge Berserkers versus Greystone Gladiators. Dwarfs versus Elves. Battle as old as time, that we've got here. And I was in the shop for some of this game. I had some friends of mine playing sevens on one table. I had this game happening on the other, and I was just sort of flitting between the two to see what was happening. And this one was really quite interesting because Jamie got rid of many elves as the game went on, and I think we have to give some credit to Justin here that. I don't think I've seen a player with so few players on the pitch look so competitive, because even with 5-4-3 elves on the pitch that he's had a few times this season where he's really been cut down, he still looked a threat, and he was still, Jamie still had to work really hard to position well, to be in the right places, to stop him being able to get to a scoring position. And even with 2, sometimes 3 times as many players, he had to work hard. Tom, you played against Justin. You had some very close games against him this season. he can do. He seems to know this Elven team well enough that he can do a lot, even when there is not much to do with.
Absolutely, he knows the game of Blood Bowl very well. He can read a pitch. He knows where to place players, what to do with the right players at the right time. So I completely agree with you that regardless of the number of elves that he's got on his side, he's always going to be a threat. Um, I have never played Jamie or actually seen any of his games, unfortunately, but I'd have liked to see a few elves, a few less elves on the pitch. I mean, quite interesting.
Scott, to give some credit to Jamie here as well, this is his third season in the ADBBL. He didn't make it out of the group in the first two. Each season, I think of anyone that you've sort of watched, there's a few coaches that we can look at over the course of a few seasons, and you can really see their progression to a really kind of a bit of a force. It's his first time in the playoffs. He's come up against a very good coach. He's got through now to the last 8. He's on a great run, and it's really it's a good testament to kind of the growth that some of the coaches are having over the seasons.
I think it's been a great development across, looking at the maturity of the league and all of the coaches. We've got new people coming in for a second and a third season. So it's great to see coaches, going along that development curve, as it were. So to see Jamie coming into this, we know how good Justin is. We could whack lyrical about the fact that he scored a touchdown against Andy and his vampires with only 3 elves in sweltering heat. So as Tom said, Justin knows his way around the Blood Bowl pitch. So Jamie, as you say, Chris, he had his work cut out, and to see someone against a really, really strong team, and if you look at tour play, it sort of gives that insight into, you've got a lot of movement within the elves, you've got a lot of completions, so they are really moving that ball around as well. So for Jamie to be able to front up against that, and then to get what was a turn 15 touchdown, shows how really, really well he played. And I think that the biggest compliment you can give him is the fact that Justin is now retiring the Gladiators. So that goes to say it all. So it's going to be first of all, hat off to Jamie. Kudos, done a great job. What's he going to do against Elliot? Is he going to come against that dwarf juggernaut? What's he going to do against that?
I think, and this is not meant to be any kind of downplay on Jamie. He, based on his performances in previous seasons, he probably does in that half of the draw. He probably does look like on paper, if you look at previous results and everything like that, he probably does look like the kind of weaker coach there. But he has really built something with this team. He's built a team he's comfortable with. He's really sort of got something there with some key skills. He's been patient with his skills, more patient than certainly I could ever be. Mighty blow, brawler, mighty blow, juggernaut, stand firm, guard, mighty blow, block tackle, guard. That's with all the built-in block tackle, sure hands. This is not a team that is going to be easy to get past, and I think probably his hardest opponent is probably more dwarfs, because he's then got kind of the same thing coming at him, and it's sort of like, are we just going to get two immovable forces bashing each other? Who's going to make the breakthrough? It's going to be really interesting to see. But well done to JD.
Is it going to be 11 versus 11 on the line of scrummage, just beating each other, just rolling the dice? As you said, Chris, he's got mighty blow on 3 of his players, and he's got the death roller.
The death roller is the one thing he has that I don't believe Elliot does. So that could be, depending on how he uses it, that could be what turns the game there. But we'll see what happens there.
So you just put the kiss of death then on Jamie, as much as I've just put the kiss of death on Tom. So we'll both.
Yeah, all right. We'll take responsibility for each of those then. Well, let's look at the quarterfinals then. We'll have a quick look at the games. We've got Lizards versus Lizards, Scale Murrays versus the Mighty Ducks, Buffalo Biggins versus Wordhollow Wanderers, Riotous Rounds versus Castlevania Bloodthirsters, and then Dwarves versus Dwarves, Numpties versus World's Edge Berserkers. I want to shout out to the comment that we've got from Rich in the chat, just to sort of shout out to the fact that regardless of what happens, very proud with his 3 nephews, with himself making up half of the draw. It's the first time that all 4 of them have got through, come so far from him teaching them games in the kitchen table, so well done. It's a good shout out. We've got a lot of young players who have sort of been in the league for a while and have worked their way up. For some of them, it's their first appearance in these in quarterfinals and in playoffs. Others have been here a few times, but it's a really good showing. Okay, I think at this point we can't not jinx people. I'm not saying we're going to do it deliberately, but I can't say how we can comment on any of these without possibly jinxing people. So, Tom, you first. Give me your gut reaction final 4.
To what? Who's going through to the semis?
Yeah.
Or
yeah.
Well, I think there's going to be a lizard team and a dwarf team. Really try not to think here. And I'll leave the other 2 for you two.
Well, I'll be a bit more nailing my colours to the mast, to use the cliche. In terms of the lizard men, I'm going to go for Dave. Sorry, Chris, but probably reverse psychology there, because I don't think you need pressure any more than what you've already been given. I think Simon, in terms of the Wordhollow Wanderers, I think he's playing very, very good. I can see him making his 2nd semi-final in a row. In terms of the dwarfs, as much as I'd love to see what Jamie does, I think Elliot is just on a complete roll, no pun intended. And again, in terms of Uncle Rich, as he is now going to be known, versus Tom and the Vampires, I'm just going to go with Tom, because I think he's played exceptionally well. And obviously coming out of Group Nixon as well, got a cheer on your local. So yeah, so for me it's going to be Dave versus Simon, so Lizardmen versus Underworld, and then I think Vampires versus Dwarves. Tom versus Elliot, just to mitigate any risk and confusion. What about you, Chris? Name your coaches. Come on. If you can name yourself, by the way, you are allowed. Modesty is, Okay, I'll ask you the question another way. If you are successful against Dave and the Scale Marys, obviously you said played 2, 1-1, lost 1 this season, who would you like to play, or who would you not like to play in the semis against Harrison or Simon, having played both of them before?
I want to play Harrison.
Do you think you'll play Harrison?
Ask me another question.
Okay, well let's take it to the lower one then. What's your thoughts on the other 4?
It's such a difficult call. I think I think on paper I would say that Elliot's dwarves. Elliot hasn't been playing those dwarves, I think, as long as Jamie has been playing his. But I feel like Elliot is a force to be reckoned with. So I'm gonna say Elliot, and I know. Okay, I would love to see Tom beat Rich, because I would love to have a Final 4 of which none of them are champions. I think that would be really, going into the last few games and no champion remains in the draw, I think would be really, really entertaining to watch.
Yeah.
But if Tom is going to beat Rich, he's going to have the game of his life, because Rich is a absolute juggernaut and is looking as unstoppable as Elliot at this point. So that's what I'll go for.
Just to kind of just add a little bit of extra, all of these teams, there isn't much difference in team value either. So there's not going to be many adjustments. So they're now relying heavily on those skills that they've built up throughout the league. So it's going to be all 4 games are going to be really exciting to watch.
We'll see who I sack.
Watch tour play.
And on that note, on that note, we'll call it a day. I don't think I've missed anything, have I? Oh no, I have missed some things. I think Blood Rush Sevens. Anyone who's out of the tournament at the moment, do remember we've got our ongoing Sevens competition. If you want to play a Sevens game, pick up a team, bring it in store, play elsewhere. You can play it wherever you want, and let us know the result, and we'll keep an on-running tally, and there'll be a prize at the end for that. If you want to borrow a team... Oh, sorry,
actually, sorry, just very quickly to add, I know there's been a number of people saying, oh, I don't know how to play it, I've never played it before. More than happy to let people know what there's certain rules and things. I've done a couple of games. Scott and I are down there on Thursday night, so if you want to come along and have a look and see Rats beating several different teams, come along and enjoy. It's a really interesting and fun way of playing Blood Bowl.
Just on that, if people do want to know as well, there's some really good stuff. There's links people have put in the Discord chat if you want to go in there, and I think the rules and links to the rules are all in there. Plus, of course, there's some really good stuff on the YouTube. Ben, our aspirational, broadcaster from the Bonehead podcast, jump over to that channel, and there's some really good stuff on there in terms of Sevens as well.
Yeah, I would say don't be afraid of Sevens. If you want to give it a try, jump in. It is kind of like Blood Bowl light in a way. It's a really good intro game if you haven't played, and it's a really good kind of platform to play some other teams if you want to as well. So we've got some teams that are available in store. If there's a team you want to try, just get in contact, and there might be a team that you can kind of test out if you want to try something a bit new before you buy them. We've got a few of those as well. So please do get in touch.
Because the scoring is going against the coach, not the team.
Yes, so you can play as many different teams as you want. It just goes against you, so don't worry about that either. Anything I've missed? Because last week I did. Anything I've missed, guys?
Good. Just one thing, just a reminder, guys, don't forget your mugs. Uncle Rich, if you want to donate for your 3 nephews, you'll be the best uncle ever. You know they'd want it, just to raise your kudos that little bit more as well.
And as we know, Valentine's is coming, so what says more than a mug, eh?
No, an A&D Blood Bowl mug. That's what makes it even more special there, Tom. So for all you romantic fools out there, this is what you need.
If anyone does give their other half a Blood Bowl Live Advanced and Dragons mug for Valentine's Day, I would appreciate a photo of their face receiving it. I think that would
Well, it just means more time for Blood Bowl then, doesn't it?
Exactly. Thank you everyone for jumping in. Thank you Tom, thank you Scott for joining us once again. We will be back. We will be back next week if all of the quarterfinals have been played. The way that we'll do these roundups now, going to the end of the season, is we'll wait for the whole round to have been concluded, and then we will do the roundup the following Monday for that round. So you might see us next week, you might not. We'll see how the games are getting on. Any of those games that we can bring you, we'll bring you them live if we can. I want to bring you as many as we can going forwards, going into this last stage. So good luck to all of our last 8 coaches. Good luck to all of our Sevens players. Good luck to anyone playing anywhere in any tournament or any game and any table that you're playing in, and we will see you all next time.